Shemai, guys. Welcome back to the Life to the Full podcast, the podcast that helps you make the most of your time here on Earth. I'm your host, Dav Morse. Once again, it's a pleasure to be back on the airwaves. I've had a few weeks hiatus from the podcast, spent some time off social media, off podcasting, but on spending time in Portugal, spending time with the family, eating pastel de nata, and having people refuse to speak Portuguese to me. That was a bit disappointing. But I'm back, and today's episode is entitled How to Survive in a Country That's a National Scale Dumpster Fire and Why It's Actually Not That Bad. There it is. Our country is a national scale dumpster fire, and we're just watching it go up in flames. That's what the mainstream media and social media will have you believe. The NHS is falling apart. It's no longer fit for purpose. Good teachers are leaving the education system faster than the government can lure in unsuspecting young people to replace them. The cost of living crisis has stopped being called that because we're all just tired of hearing about it. It's not a crisis anymore. It's just called normal life. We've just accepted that things are going to get more and more expensive forever, and we're going to continue to see wages decline in real terms. Houses are never going to be affordable ever again for our young people. Taxes are getting higher than ever before, and they can only go up. Inflation is stealing our purchasing power. People are working 2 or 3 jobs just to survive. Treading water financially is all we can hope to do, and even that takes effort. Without knowing what you're doing, you'll just get further and further behind. Is there any hope for us, any of us, who aren't the super rich? Is the UK really that bad? Is the US any better? So many people are leaving the UK for a better lifestyle. Why I'm not leaving them, and what we can actually do about things. All this and more in today's installment of the Life to the Full podcast. I thought it would be a fun topic to tackle. So, what are the problems? Well, I've already mentioned quite a few of the problems here in the UK, and looking around elsewhere in the rest of the world, things don't seem to be a lot better from a lot of media outlets. All you need to do to get a picture of some of the problems that people are experiencing in the UK is to post a controversial thread or post to X saying something like, "If you live in the UK, you're richer than 90% of the world and you should be grateful." And just watch the hate and the complaining come through. I've seen so many replies that have a theme of wanting to retire or stop working or being unable to because they have no financial plan, no financial means to. And it makes me sad. But you're not like that, precious listener. You're here because you want to build a financial cushion and want to have agency over your life. I hate hearing labourers who are in their 50s or 60s who say, "My body's breaking, but I have to keep going to work because I've got no pension and I still have a mortgage to pay." There was a chap who came to do the patio at the front of our house a little while back, and he said he's been doing manual labour for 40 years. He left school at 16 and he was in his mid-50s coming to do our patio, lugging sand, lugging stones, mixing, shoveling. He said, "My body's broken." But he couldn't afford to stop working, and he doesn't know how else to live, doesn't know what else he could do. My heart went out to this man who will probably not make it to retirement age and will literally be working until his body gives up on him. He had a new missus whose kids were younger. His kids had grown up, but now he had this responsibility to his new family. Never has it been so clear to me that I need to share the message of financial independence, financial responsibility, so that I can play a part in helping someone start investing earlier in life, so that they have the option to walk away from work at 56 if they want to. I need to encourage people to learn about investing, about earning, about living below, not at or above your means, about how money works, what is money. That is a responsibility I want to take seriously with this podcast. I want people to listen, to learn, to be inspired to change the trajectory of their lives. That is my life's work. It's a sad state of affairs that it's not possible, for the most part, to raise a family and buy a house on a single income. Every year, home ownership seems to get further and further out of reach for anyone saving for a deposit. The cost of living is rising, and the increase in people's wages is not keeping up. You might get a raise, and you might hear a government spokesperson saying, "We've given pay rises above the rate of inflation," where they cherry pick the data for a specific time. It may well be true that your pay rise is above the rate of inflation for a short time frame. But if you look at the data since 2005, when I started working, teachers, nurses, doctors are all worse off by almost 25% in real terms. That means you need 1.5 people working to cover the wage of a single worker from 20 years ago. Give it another 30 years and you'll need 3 workers per household. How mad would that be? I'm not a fan of polyamory, so you'd have to live as a married couple with your sister, or send your kid out to work just to survive as a household. Crazy. You, of course, can't start complaining about the UK without complaining about the weather. Cold and miserable and grey and windy and wet for 10 months of the year. Then slightly less cold and slightly less wet and grey for the rest of the time. I was told the other day that I live in the wettest city in the UK. So that made me really cheery. Even in the springtime, you'll be scraping ice off your car at 7 a.m, sunbathing at 12 p.m, and then putting the heating on at 7 p.m. But the biggest problem is by far the feeling of hopelessness and non-agency that people seem to have. If you don't feel in control, then life is full of misery. Working 11 hours a day, going home to sleep, and repeating with no end in sight and no hope of improving your situation is not a recipe for success. People feel empty and like it's no way to live. Being able to answer in the affirmative for statements like, "I have agency over my life. I feel in control of my decisions," is a key mindset to feeling like the UK is an okay place to live. You absolutely must believe that you can make a difference in your own life. If you believe you can make change happen, then you can start to believe that the UK isn't all that bad. Why it's not so bad. Control what you can control. Control your reactions. You get to control how you react to situations. You get to choose what to care about. One of the realities of life is that we can't care about everything. We don't have the capacity to care about all the things that are going wrong in the world. We purposely ignore injustice and stay willfully ignorant about all but a few of the high-profile news cases. And even then, we only listen so that we feel like we care, and to appease our sense of wanting to be a good global citizen. We don't care enough to actually do anything about the war in Ukraine or the political elite taking our wealth. If you do, then please go for it. Let me know so I can champion and encourage you. I don't say this to make us feel bad. We're physically not capable of doing it. We can choose to care about those around us. We can start by taking care of our family and our neighbours. We can care about those in our local community where we can take action. Actually do something to make the place better and to see the effects of our actions. We can practice radical generosity to those around us. So when we hear news or something comes up in life with the potential to derail us, we can choose to react negatively to all the negative input into our lives, or we can choose to see the positive in the situation. We can choose not to consume media that makes us feel negative. I often discuss with my wife how we should react in situations. She says, "You can't control your initial reaction." And I'll say, "I agree, but you can choose what to do with that reaction." If it spurs you on to make a positive change in your life, or if it serves you in some way and moves you to action, then great. If it's going to send you down a rabbit trail of misery and self-wallowing, then you can take that thought captive and thank it and move on. Controlling your emotions doesn't mean not feeling anything. It means feeling them fully and deciding how to continue to react. Having a positive mindset to adversity has been shown to have a positive impact on one's outcomes in life and business and relationships. And the best bit is that it's a learnable skill. I'm increasingly realizing that I'm not the norm when it comes to having a positive mindset towards life. I've mentioned before on the podcast that I'm able to find joy and a silver lining in almost any situation. I think it comes naturally to me. But that has been strengthened over the years by constantly putting that positive mindset into action. I'm reinforcing that positivity. My neurons are building that pathway in my brain so that it becomes even more natural. If it doesn't come so naturally to you, you can train yourself so that it becomes a habit. Whenever people around you are complaining about Britain, choose to think the opposite. Choose to think positively. When they complain about the weather, be thankful for seasons. Be thankful for the joy that comes in spring when the sun starts to come out and the flowers start to grow and the foraging wild foods is at its best. Be thankful for the summer. Be thankful for snow days. Be thankful for the ability to snuggle up warm in a lovely cozy jumper with a lovely warm blanket. When they complain about what the government is doing or not doing, be thankful that you are someone who takes action to make their own future better. When they complain about house prices going up, think to yourself, if you measure in pounds, yes. If you measure in something else, like gold or Bitcoin, then houses are roughly the same as they were, or even cheaper. And be thankful that you are someone who takes responsibility for your income. Which brings me to my next point. Control your income. One way to improve your situation, if you're not happy with how much money you earn, is to simply earn more money. Obviously, this is easier said than done. I dedicated half an episode to making more money back in episode 14, well worth checking out. But I'll give you the TLDR here. There are 3 ways, or stages if you will, to earning more money. Number 1 is work more hours. Number 2 is to get better paid work. And number 3 is to own assets that pay you. The easiest way to earn more money is simply to work more. If your job allows it, then you can work an extra few hours a day. 10 hours a week on minimum wage is just over £120, which is almost £500 a month extra. I know of people that on top of their day job will work at restaurants for 6 hours in the evening or drive delivering pizzas. If you do that a couple of nights a week, there's your extra £500. The problem with this is that it requires more of your time. You'll certainly want to start like that, but maybe you'll want to move on to step number 2. Some people are already working more hours than is reasonable for a human to do, and still not able to afford all that they want to afford. If this is the case, then you need to learn a more valuable skill and get a more highly paid job. This, again, is obviously easier said than done. A few years ago, I qualified as a mortgage advisor. It took a few months of studying in the evening, passing a few exams, and I could start working as a mortgage advisor. The mortgage advisor that I use told me that I could earn a lot of money doing that work. But it would take a while for the client base to build up, and it would require some long-term dedication. But essentially, I could have earned much more than I did as a teacher, potentially even twice as much. And the qualification was way easier to get. It will take some time and some effort, and obviously by the time and effort that you put in, that means that you're not able to earn more by working more hours in your current job. But if you take a long-term perspective, then that is a much better decision. The next level is to own assets that pay you money. This could be dividends from stocks that you buy. It could be a rental property. I'm not in a position where I can live entirely off the assets that I own, but they do go some way towards paying for some of my monthly expenses. This is even better than the second option. The ideal is to get more qualified, get better paid, and use the pay to buy assets that will pay for your lifestyle. I like asking the question, what assets can I buy that will pay for whatever this thing might be that I want? For example, if I want to go on a skiing holiday, what can I buy that would produce an income that will pay for that skiing holiday? I don't yet have enough experience with selling digital products to give you any particularly meaningful insights. I do have a Quit Teaching, Start Living audio course that I have sold, and if you're interested in that, then there's a link in the description. But the idea of creating something which you can sell over and over is fascinating to me. And it's the final boss version of earning an income that's not tied directly to your time. The next thing to control is control your money. One of the most frustrating feelings is when it comes to earning money, is feeling like you've worked so hard to earn that money and you simply save the money, but yet you can't go out and buy as much stuff with it the following year. Obviously, you can't escape noticing that everything is more expensive than it was. The reason for this is inflation. If you have a basic understanding of inflation, or if you've been to university even and studied finance, like I did, you might think that inflation is just a natural process. There's nothing we can do to stop it completely. We just have to manage it. You may have heard that the government's inflation target is 2 to 3%, and that governments try their best when inflation gets out of hand to bring things back under control and bring it back down to 2 to 3%. But there's nothing natural about inflation. Think about it for a second. Human ingenuity, human effort, everything we do is in order to advance the world, to make things better, to make things quicker, to be more productive, to make things cheaper. There is no reason for things to become more expensive when we are better, quicker, and more efficient at making them. If anything, we should live in a deflationary world where everything becomes cheaper over time. What you may not know is that this inflation is planned. Governments want inflation. They specifically have it as a policy. This is a way to steal the purchasing power of your effort without you realizing it, because the number in your bank account is the same. It's the way they can fund paying for the government debt without rioting on the streets. If you always and exclusively use government money, which of course I know we all do, you will always be subject to inflation. There is a way to opt out of government-controlled money. Bitcoin is a decentralized money which no government can control. It's a way of preserving your wealth without it being inflated away. There is no inflation with Bitcoin. You may think, how can you save money in Bitcoin? The price is too volatile. This is true when you measure it versus the dollar or the pound. But it is itself used as a money. People all over the world are moving to a Bitcoin standard. They use Bitcoin as much as they can for their business needs and for their day-to-day needs, and interact as little as possible with the fiat, i.e. government-issued, money. Remember, no one has ever held Bitcoin for more than 4 years and lost money in dollar terms. House prices in the UK are more than 10 times cheaper when priced in Bitcoin than where they were before we went into lockdown for COVID. I'm not here to say put everything into Bitcoin, but I am saying it is worth learning about it. It's worth spending time to research how money is created, what problem Bitcoin proposes to solve. I maintain the position that it's financially irresponsible not to at least learn about Bitcoin. If you control your money, you have the freedom to leave if you want. If the government decides to introduce an exit tax, or heaven forbid they bring in a CBDC, which is a central bank digital currency, where they will literally be able to program your money to expire or to only be spent on certain things, you have the freedom to opt out. Knowing that you can control your own money makes living in the UK so much better. You know that feeling you get that you could walk away if you need to? You're not trapped. That's a great feeling. The earlier in life you can start taking agency and responsibility for your future self, the better. If you're in your 20s or 30s, you're in a prime position to start taking control of your finances, of your work life, of your location, of your relationships. If you're in your 40s or 50s, taking action now could mean the difference between retiring at state pension age or having to continue to work beyond state pension age because your state pension isn't enough to live on. It's never too late to start taking responsibility for your situation. You may have been dealt some harsh cards in life. Taking responsibility is the best thing you can do. I love the story. Well, it's not even a story. It's the real-life actions of a guy called Perry from the Stupid is the Norm YouTube channel. He started at age 57, his journey towards financial independence. He had £10,000 in credit card debt and was working minimum wage. In 5.5 years, he built up a rental portfolio of properties which gross £100,000 of income. Per year. Would I want to work as hard as he did? No. He hustled and he grinded. He would work way over overtime. I don't want to do that. The reason he had to work so hard is because he left it late. But it is possible. Be thankful for what you have. Be content with what you have. This is always the key. Britain isn't so bad. I'm thankful that I can go about my work without too much government interference. I have religious freedom for the most part. There are some beautiful parts of the UK. We have beautiful cities, beautiful coastline, beautiful beaches. And despite living in Britain's wettest city, the sun is currently shining. The spring air is all around. There's a certain excitement and joy that comes with the spring. I have friends and family around me. If I moved from the UK, that would be one of the most pressing challenges. One of the keys to longevity is the quality of your relationships at age 50. It takes a long time to make old friends. All this thankfulness is getting to my heart a little bit. I'm feeling a little bit emotional and soft. So I'm off to hang out with my brother and his family. Let me finish with a challenge. This week, take control of something in your life that you've been letting slide. Choose one small way to increase your income. A skill to learn, a side hustle to start, a raise to ask for. Choose one small way to protect your money. Maybe move it into a high interest account. Maybe read up on index funds. Maybe just start tracking your spending. Learn about Bitcoin. And choose one small way to level up your mindset. Reframe a complaint. Catch a negative spiral and interrupt it. Say out loud, I have agency. Because you do. Go and make a list of everything you love about where you live and share it with me on Instagram or Threads, Life to the Full Podcast, or drop me a line, Life to the Full Podcast, davmorse@gmail.com. If you found today's episode helpful, consider sharing it with someone who's feeling stuck. Let's spread hope, practical wisdom, and the reminder that life, even in the UK, can still be lived to the full. Peace out.